program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to get this meeting started. Today we've got the September 17th Plan Commission, City of Eau Claire. I'd like to let everybody know that this meeting is being broadcast live by Valley MediaWorks on Charter Channel 994, WRFP-LP 101.9 FM, and online at valleymediaworks.org. The Plan Commission attempts to conduct its public hearings in a relatively informal manner within the constraints that we must deal with the issues before us in an orderly and businesslike fashion. We give the applicant an opportunity to speak first, and then others, either for or against proposal, and they each are permitted to speak once. We do request that everyone restrict their comments to the issues before us, avoid unnecessary repetition, and be prudent with use of time. We want to be sure that we adequately deal with the last item as well as the first. Let's see. I'd like to remind everybody to turn off cell phones or turn them to silent. If you are going to speak tonight, we do have yellow forms. Are they in the back of the room, Ryan? Back of the room. And you just leave them on the podium when you speak. Please, before you start, introduce yourself with name and address. And that takes us to item number 1, which is public hearing for detached carport at 3108 Riverview Drive. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Plan Commission members of the public. Here is an overview of the items. I do apologize for the map. It is not that clear on the screen. It is clear on my monitor, but item number 1 is on the north side near the airport. This proposal is a conditional use permit for a detached carport in excess of accessory unit standards for the property located at 3108 Riverview Drive. Here's a notification map of a 300-foot radius. An aerial photograph showing the parcel of which is the subject property. This is the existing home on the left of the screen. It is kind of hard to see on that, but that is the detached carport that they're proposing. The side view of the detached carport. And then the floor plan, all in your packet. American Land Surveying is requesting a conditional use permit to allow for a detached carport located at 3108 Riverview Drive. The proposed carport is 48 feet by 13.2 or 635 square feet in size. Accessory use standards for detached and attached structures on a parcel is up to 1,500 square feet. Currently, the applicant has a 3-car attached garage. This would be a detached carport to the south of the proposal. The total square footage would be 1,619 square feet if the Plan Commission does approve this request. My understanding of the storage carport would be for an RV vehicle. In your packet is the review criteria. We would note for this area, this particular parcel is 1.9 acres in size. Most homes in the areas have attached garages or detached garages, double or triple. The side yard does have existing screening to the south. The Plan Commission would need to review this criteria for a conditional use permit. Staff would recommend approval of the request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Petrie. One quick one for me. We've seen some of these recently and approved them, right, in the same area?
That is correct. We did approve one last year just up the road a little farther. That was for a detached garage. Similar situation here. This is for a detached carport.
Great. Any questions? Mr. Granlund.
Excuse me, how does this qualify as a detached structure? I thought there needed to be more physical separation between a house and a detached
My understanding
structure?
is not actually attaching it to the existing attached garage, so it's
If it were a detached garage, there would have to be a suitable separation distance between the building and the garage, protection of openings that might be between an attached and detached structure. Since a detached structure is allowed to intrude into the setback and an attached structure is not allowed to intrude, I'm not quite clear on how or where the setback is in this case, whether we're intruding into the setback or if we're staying out of the setback. Those are fire safety issues.
Sure. The side setback for attached or detached in the side yard is 8 feet to the property line from the edge of the structure. Now, I did check with the Calvin Miller, our building official. This is an open carport. My understanding, I don't know the distance requirement between a principal structure and a detached structure. Typically, it's 10 feet, but in this case, since it's open on all 4 sides except the side of the garage, that part we have to double check with the building permit when they do apply for it.
Any additional follow-up, Craig? Okay. Mr. Granlund? Okay, got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess so my understanding, looking at this a little bit more closely, is that the only thing that we're approving is, maybe if you go back to the map, or the front view, is the very far left structure just to the left of the 2 garage doors that we're seeing.
That is correct.
Okay. So that clarifies it perhaps, is that it's an open carport and rather no like enclosed structure.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Is the applicant here? Come up here and. All right, how you doing?
Members of the Planning Commission, I am Eric Knauf with American Land Surveying. My address is 3028 Hartwood Drive. That's Hartwood.
Great. Anything you'd like to add, or?
No, basically, what we're looking at is trying to assist my client in gaining some additional space to store their RV. Basically, what we're looking at is an extension of a roof in order to offer some protection from the elements for my client's RV. We're running into the situation where we'd like to get have the length of this carport match up with the length of the house, and in order to accommodate the enough room to adequately store an RV underneath that roof, we need to have it the entire length of the building.
That's great.
Thank you.
Well, let's see if anybody have any questions for the applicant? Thanks.
Thank you.
This item is a public hearing, so if there's anybody here that'd like to come forward to discuss this item, now is your opportunity. Anybody like to come forward? I'm not seeing anybody. I guess we'd be looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve with staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Mr. Granlund.
I would like to suggest that if the rain is being kept out from between the 2 structures, the roof extending and actually being flashed to the wall, it would be correct to identify it as an attached structure, not a detached structure. It appears that it is not intruding into the setbacks, and therefore it would be appropriate to review it as an attached structure, not intruding into the setback, but obviously being beyond that limit of square footage that was given. And I have no objection to that, but those items were not marked on the plan for reference.
Yeah, come on up.
Attaching the carport to the existing structure does have regulatory implications with the city's building code as well as FEMA. If the structure is attached to the building, and this is one of the possibilities that we had discussed with the client and the contractor who's going to do the building, is if this structure is attached to the building, then we have to comply with constructing filling an area for what's commonly referred to as the flood protection plateau, which would extend 15 foot beyond the structure. So at that point, then we're looking at filling a significant area, which is also going to remove any of the screening that does exist. So what we're looking at is trying to construct the detached carport on the existing pad that was constructed on the existing pad, which is now compliant with FEMA's regulatory authority for constructing a building within the floodplain. So what we're looking at is having a pre-existing pad here, where if we're looking at attaching it to the building, then we're looking at doing a significant amount of excavation to build an even larger flood protection plateau around the proposed structure. So,
Your request?
I think it's very clear that it's necessary to have these complications laid out for us so we can make an appropriate decision. I do not have an objection based on this report of the conditions.
Okay, that's great.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for answering the question. Okay, so we got a motion and a second, and Greg, you're not adding the conditions?
I would not make any.
Okay, okay. So we got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Not seeing. Let's call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Congratulations. All right, so we're on to item number 2. This is for approval, site plan for 816 Porter Avenue. And I'm going to abstain from discussion and voting on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Before you is item number 2, which is on the map, which is hard to see again. It's located downtown on the south end. It's 816 Porter Avenue, the old Severson home. The proposal before the Plan Commission is to convert this building from nursing home to a multifamily 47-unit apartment. The current zoning of the parcel is R4. River Valley Architects and Commonweal Development Corporation is proposing to convert the existing Severson home located at 816 Porter Avenue here along the river on the south end of the YMCA property. The site plan shows the addition of 2 attached garages to the east of the building and the addition of a 4th floor to the existing building to add 3 apartment units. Pedestrian link is provided from the building to Porter Avenue. The addition to the 4-story would be within the overall footprint of the building. However, the Zoning Board of Appeals did review this given the setback from the river. Also, the Waterways and Parks Commission did review this application as well. In your packet is the multiple floor plans showing the proposed building. This is the ground floor showing the additional parking lots and garages. The 2nd floor, 3rd floor, and the proposed 4th floor. Here's an elevation showing the proposed reconstruction and remodeling of the structure with the addition of the 4th floor. And again, another elevation. The landscaping for the project actually removes some paving on the existing site and will be adding more green space. The parking requirement is based on 1 per bedroom. With the project is 72 stalls required. They do get a 10% reduction for being on transit route. Currently, there's 101 spots proposed, 36 within the 2 garages that are new, and 65 surface parking. The site plan didn't note anything about bicycle parking. Typically, bicycle parking is provided in a garage. In this case, which they are adding, given the location, staff felt they should add the condition potentially to add more bicycle parking given the location along the downtown. In your report is the grading and drainage, public utilities, traffic and transit. We do have a few conditions added to the site plan for review. Staff felt they should revise the landscape plan showing what potentially would be green space and what would be within that green space. Provide additional bicycle parking. City engineer approval of the grading and drainage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions for Mr. Petrie? Yes, Jeremy.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Petrie. I had a question about where, like dumpsters and recycling storage will be, and where the loading zone areas and unloading more so, I guess, for that type of use of the building. I know that currently the way the building is designed, there's dumpsters with riverfront views, essentially. So I was wondering how that's being designed in here.
That is a good question, Mr. Grigger. I'm not 100% sure showing on the site plan. I did not see the dumpster enclosure on it. That should be added to the conditions, but the applicant would, that'd be a good question for the applicant as well.
Any additional questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Greger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I was wondering about the lighting and the impact on neighbors potentially of the building. So I guess it'd mostly be a concern on the south edge of the building. So I'm not sure if that's been described in detail yet.
Another good question. That would be for the applicant. Now, we do note in our conditions always that lighting does need to meet the exterior lighting standards. But then again, we have not seen what the proposal is, but the applicant may know that answer as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for staff? All right, I'm not seeing any. The applicant here, come on up.
Good evening. Stuart Schaefer, Commonweal Development, one of the project partners and the acting developer for the project. I think the description has been fairly accurate. We are attempting to repurpose this building, which is in tough shape aesthetically on the inside and outside, but has got a very good structure. So pretty much everything else will be replaced. We're talking about totally replacing the HVAC system. All the windows would be replaced, and we're adding some additional structure to the top of the third floor. There is a big mechanical penthouse already on the fourth floor, so we're just adding to that. We're not really adding another floor so much as just adding to the fourth floor. We've met with all of the immediate owner-occupied neighbors on the property, and we've gained their support. Mentioned lighting. That was a concern of one of the neighbors, and we plan to address that, make sure there's no lighting that would be any more intense than what they've got now. In fact, any lighting we would have on the exterior of the building would be down lighting, be in compliance with the dark sky initiatives. We have met with the neighbors. We also attended the Third Ward Neighborhood Association meeting last Tuesday, the 12th, and we've gotten it's actually a unanimous endorsement from the Third Ward Neighborhood Association for the project. So that was a pleasant surprise. Not that we thought they'd be opposed to it, but we were surprised that they actually endorsed the project with a vote. I guess I don't know what else I have to add other than, what was the other question? Was the, bikes? We didn't show, I don't know why there weren't bike parking on the plan, but there will be exterior bike parking, and we put a lot of those wall-mounted bike hangers in the garage. Whenever we have a project like this, people really like those. We put them between the cars. We put them wherever we can find a spot for the bike parking inside. That people really prefer that inside as opposed to being outside, getting the bikes getting rusty. And the other question I recall now was the trash. Trash would be, there is a room. I don't know if there's one of the floor plans here. Can I? Just the arrow button? You can't see it real good here, but that white area in the yellow, it's got its own doors up here. That's for trash and recycling. So we don't want to have a trash enclosure out in the parking lot. It's a lot cheaper and whatnot. We get a couple more parking spots, but then we have vermin and whatnot out in the parking lot, and neighbors helping to fill up the dumpsters. So the idea is to have the trash as part of the covered parking garage.
Great. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Brager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for your proposal here. I was actually at the meeting, of course, last week with Third Ward Neighborhood Association, so appreciated you being there and to answer questions of the neighbors and doing the outreach that you did ahead of the project even becoming public too. So I guess one of my follow-up questions was on the landscaping topic that Mr. Petrie brought up, and I guess I'm not seeing like a super detailed plan as to where the green spaces are, but one of the particular areas that I think could be enhanced more in terms of green space and as well as like views from the river would be on the north end of the building where you have parking going right up to the edge of the river. So I'm wondering if maybe that could be a place to imagine a green space or a place to be by the river that's not paved, I guess, and because right now that's where the dumpsters for the building actually are. So I'm glad to hear that you're moving them. But what are your thoughts on green space, or maybe you could give us a better picture of our description of where all the green spaces are going to be for folks to hang out on grassy areas?
Yeah, well, we can definitely look at that. That's not a bad suggestion. It's got a retaining wall and some stuff down there, and that's also one of the tenant entrances down there. So we'll have some parking down there, but we can definitely look at cleaning up that river bank along there. On the south side of the property, there is some green space that we plan to take advantage of. In talking to the neighbors too, they felt there were invasive species between the two properties. So we were going to work with both Dr. Smets and the Meeks family to possibly tear out the invasive plants and plant some evergreens and stuff along there to help with light control, and also possibly put a fence in, because he said that on occasion people actually take a shortcut through there. Looking at it, it doesn't look like a very good shortcut to me, but apparently there are some people who think that's a shortcut to Water Street. So we're going to work with those two neighbors. We promised both of them whether we can do it with just some evergreens or if we actually do a fence. But so that area will be cleaned up, and then along the front, where we're actually taking out quite a bit of blacktop, there's kind of a big turning thing on the front. That'll be taken out and there'll be landscaping put in there. So I think there'd be more green space than there is now, but there's not a lot of opportunity for green space on the site. It's pretty hardscape the way it sits right now. But we'll do what we can. The idea is to make it a really attractive place, a very welcoming place to live, and to make it more of a part of the Third Ward, as opposed to kind of a part of the YMCA parking lot, which is kind of what it is now. It's kind of that, the line is kind of drawn on the south of the property, and then it goes to other uses. So we want to kind of bring the property architecturally and through operational processes into the third ward, become part of the third ward. And we've had a lot of interest already from potential residents who own homes in the third ward and are looking possibly to downsize or to get into something where they don't have so much maintenance. And they've looked at this as a great spot for them to be able to move without having to leave their neighborhood that they really appreciate.
Question? Go ahead.
I have a follow-up question to that. I guess on a little bit more detail on the bicycle parking part of it, because I don't believe it is indicated on any of our drawings here, but I did hear that you are going to have outdoor as well as indoor bike parking. Is that correct? And maybe you could point to the location of the outdoor.
You know, I don't know exactly where we're going to put it.
Okay.
I've got, it just came up that it wasn't shown on the plan in reading the report, and I haven't really looked at that, but we'll provide the code compliant parking on the exterior, but we'll go above and beyond that, because the residents, especially downtown, they all have bikes. At our Riverfront Terrace apartment project, we have probably an indoor bike parking rack for about every apartment, at least one, and we've put a ton of them up, and they're all full. Every one of them is full. So it's just something we're going to do because the residents want it done on the inside. And the outside, we'll put the ones out there, and those are used pretty regularly too at our other apartment projects. But we will put them out, and they'll be at the entrances. I don't know exactly how we're going to do that spot on the north side. You know, where you talked about where the dumpsters are now. There's actually a little overhang there, and that might be a really good spot for some exterior bike parking by the entrance. But obviously, we like to put them by the entrances, and we like to put them inside for the people who are living at the building and get them out of the rain.
Any additional questions for the applicant? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thanks. So this is not a public hearing, so we're looking for a motion, right, Scott? I guess we're looking for a motion at this point.
I'll move to approve the staff recommendations.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations, good luck. All right, so that takes us to item number 3, site plan for approval, industrial storage at 4825 Prospect Drive. It's Petrie again.
The next two items are located in the Gateway Industrial Park on the northwest side of the City of Eau Claire. Everyday Serving and Engineering is requesting approval for a site plan for warehouse storage located on Prospect Drive. Attached in your packet is the site plan and aerial map showing the site. The site is west of the temporary City Hall. Required parking is based on the number of employees, which is 5, and 5 are showing on the site plan. The Gateway Board has approved the site plan for the project. Like again, in your packet is the proposed site plan, and do apologize for the clarity of the screen again. The warehouse building is 102,400 square feet. The site plan did lack street trees. However, we did get a revise from the applicant, so that condition will be removed. A 2-stall U-shaped bicycle rack is shown on the plan. A pedestrian link shall be provided from the sidewalk of the building to the public street. Light fixtures, light poles are noted to meet the city standards for exterior lighting. A CSM shall be provided prior to issuing a building permit. Looking at, this is the current parcel, but they are modifying that, so potentially a CSM shall be filed before getting that building permit. All signs shall meet the Gateway standards. Grading and drainage, public utilities, traffic, and transit is noted in your report. I would just note that the 2 proposed driveways are at 35 feet. The Plan Commission shall review that. The maximum typically without the waiver from the Plan Commission is 30 feet, so they're going 5 feet wider for the semi-trucks that are delivering there. The conditions that staff would just note, number 1 shall be removed. Number 2 would provide that pedestrian link from the building to the street. The CSM approval for the site, engineering approval of the grading and drainage, and the final one would be with this approval, the Plan Commission is reproving the 30-foot wide driveways. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions? I'm not seeing any. Thanks, Ryan. All right, is the applicant here?
Good evening, folks. I'm Mark Erickson with Everyday Surveying and Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the builder Marwood Construction and the applicant, Mr. Kurt Tamburino. We agree with the conditions set forth in the letter of approval, and I can answer any other questions you folks may have.
Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Graham.
Is the approximate extent of the adjustment of the parcel boundary?
Great question. We're working on that, and what we're seeing right now, and Ryan's map has it up here right now, and what we have is I'm going to step away from the microphone for a second, folks. The mother parcel, the original mother parcel down here is 10.00 acres. We're going to come off of 45 or thereabouts, come up, and then take this essentially 6.8 acres and make that into one parcel. So the new parcel for this building to be housed on will be about 16.84, something to that effect, sir. We have got a conceptual drawing of it, and I'll be meeting with respectable city officials here in the next 24 to 48 hours if they allow me to. Yes, this map is, great question, Mr. Commissioner. The map is rotated north as to this side. Previous, huh? I'm going forward. I think, unless there's any other questions related to property boundary, I won't screw up Mr. Petrie's presentation here. I just proved that wrong.
Any additional questions? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thanks.
Thank you, folks.
Again, this one is not a public hearing, so we are looking for a motion.
I move to approve the site plan.
Motion and second.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Well, maybe this is more appropriate for future agenda items, but just a question is, we seem to be having more and more requests with the plans that come before us that want a 35-foot drive. Is there a reason why we don't just increase that standard to 35, or is there a struggle, maybe another reason why we want to keep it at 30?
Great question. I'll let you guys.
Yeah, you kind of get into how wide our normal street widths are, and right now our typical street's about a 30-foot wide street. We don't want a lot of driveways bigger than our streets. However, what you've recently seen are a lot of trucking type operations that have bigger trucks, and they've been in primarily industrial type areas. Mm-hmm. And so in those cases for their turning movements, it's warranted, but we wouldn't want that as a standard, say in a more commercial or more business type place where they might still want the wider driveway, but then it's wider than our street. So.
All right, thank you.
I think it's just a string of site plans that have come in recently with that.
Yeah.
Any additional questions, discussion? Not seeing any. Let's call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Good luck. And on to number 4, which is another site plan in the north, I guess in Gateway. 5730 Venture Drive for Ecom.
All right, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Before you this evening is another request for some industrial development, this time at 5730 Venture Drive. The request is to approve the site plan for Ecom warehouse facility. Let's see here. There's a aerial map. I'll talk a little bit more about the CSM that is tied to this as well. Here's information on the proposed building. This one has quite a bit more proposed employment attached to it than the previous agenda item. So in this case, they're looking at 50 to 75 potential number of employees, and therefore 95 stalls are provided for that. The overall square footage of the proposed building would be 120,000 square feet, plus or minus. A site plan does show street trees along the east side. There's a 5-stall inverted U-shaped bike rack as well. One condition of approval is that a pedestrian link shall be provided connecting the building sidewalk to the city's street. That was not specifically explicitly identified here. A certified survey map, or CSM, shall be provided prior to issuing a building permit for the new lot configuration. That has been going through the approval processes as well. So we'll keep that as a condition of approval, just to, again, to tie those processes that are running concurrently together. The project would tie into the adjacent regional stormwater facility. In terms of traffic, as Councilmember Weld pointed out, this plan also requests a 35-foot driveway approach on this case on Venture Drive for driveway access. Again, there's a provision in the subdivision code that does grant that as an exception pending, again, Plan Commission review and approval for various reasons. So the applicant has requested that as well. With that, again, keeping the conditions in mind, the CSM, which is running concurrently with this administratively, providing the pedestrian link from the building to the city street, and also the engineering department approving drainage calculations and drainage plan, and then finally the Plan Commission approval here this evening, if it's in your interest, for the 35-foot wide driveway width as shown. So I can show some elevations as well, just to reference those that were in your packet. Back to the overall site plan. So any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Mr. Allen? I'm not seeing any.
All right,
thanks.
thank you.
Is the applicant here? Come on up. Name and address, and anything you'd like to add, or?
Yeah, I'm Chuck Gregrich. I'm at 2020 Prairie Lane. This project, I think it's laid out just the way we wanted it done. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Any concerns with the conditions?
No.
Staff? Okay. Any questions for Mr. Gregrich? Oh, there we go. Mr. Greger.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gregrich, I was wondering, I guess I'm not sure the use of the building, and if you give us a sense of that, or if that's something you're not revealing yet, or?
No, right now we're in Eau Claire. We're in right next to the city offices right now down there. So we're just moving our business over here. We're a warehouse. We're an e-commerce company, so we'll have containers and trailers coming in all day, and we have like 50 employees right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions, the applicant? All right. I'm not seeing it. Thanks for coming up. Again, this is for our approval, and it's not a. Oh, okay. Not a public. We're open for public discussion, so we'd be looking for a motion. Mr. Larson.
I'll move approval with staff recommendations.
Second, Ms. Obaid. All right, I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, I'm not seeing any. Let's call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Congratulations. Good luck. All right, item number 5, final plat for Sunny Ridge, Town of Union. Mr. Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 5 is on the west side of Eau Claire, actually outside the city limits, but within the ETJ, which the city controls platting within 3 miles outside the city limits. Aerial photograph showing the existing site west of 94, west of Kane Road, south of Cameron Street. Sunny Ridge is the final plat. It's approximately 22.5 acres in the Town of Union. Real Land Serving is requesting approval of the final plat shown here, which is, again, fuzzy. I do apologize for that. In your packet, though, you should be able to read it and an aerial photograph. The property is outside this SSA sewer service area of the city, but within the ETJ for the review of the final subdivision. Under the agreements with the terms of the Town of Union and the City of Eau Claire subdivision code, a 2-lot density standard is appropriate. The property is approximately 22.5 acres, currently zoned RH rural homes. The proposal is 11 buildable lots with 2 outlots along Cameron Street. The plat is consistent with what the Plan Commission reviewed on July 16th. Staff would recommend approval of the request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions? Mr. Petrie? Not seeing any. Thanks. Is the applicant here? Come on up if you don't mind.
I am the applicant, Lee Haramza. Yeah, you pretty much said everything. We were working with Pete Gartman at AEC, pretty much narrowed everything down to how you guys want it. Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing anything. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, again, this is well, this one's for recommendations. So is this a public hearing?
No, that's just recommendation.
For recommendations, so we'd be looking for a motion at this point.
I'll move approval since my mic is on.
Thank you. Got a motion? There, all right.
I second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, let's call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Then, congratulations. I guess that gets us down to code compliance items and future agenda. Code compliance items. Oh.
I'll defer the commissioners if there are any code compliance items, certainly. Done? All right. What's next?
Future agenda items?
Yes.
Oh, Terry, sorry.
I thought I'd just revisit the question I had earlier. I'm just wondering, forgive me for not having read the code, the book, but would it simplify things if it was industrially zoned that it could have a 35-foot without commission approval?
We'd be glad to look at that.
Okay.
I'm just looking to save a step, I guess, but.
Good point. Thank you. It's certainly something we can look at.
Yeah, makes sense. Oh, sure, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One idea I had for an agenda item, and I know we touch on the topic of affordable housing quite a bit here and there, but it seems like there's a lot of interest from the public in a discussion in front of the Plan Commission on the topic of affordable housing. So I'm kind of wondering how we can do that in our, given the way we are structured as a commission, and had some dialogue with staff on it so far, but if anyone else from the commission has thoughts on how we can involve the public in a discussion on the topic, in front of us and with us on some level. Obviously, we do have the housing task force that is active, but I think a way, I've definitely been getting requests from folks in the public about how they can address the Plan Commission directly. So maybe just something to think about it, and commission members can provide their thoughts on that in the future. But I just wanted to raise that as an interest out there, especially since not all of our items, and sometimes very few of our items, have a public hearing, including when we're approving a site plan for a relatively large apartment building. Sometimes the affordability question comes up, and folks want to participate in that discussion, even if it's not directly related to a site plan. So finding an appropriate way to have that discussion on our agenda would be something I would appreciate, and I think a lot of people in the community would too. So just wanted to put that out there.
John?
Sure.
And I know you started, along with the city of Altoona, a housing task force. Is that an opportunity?
That may be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Councilmember Gregert. Certainly something, obviously, a front burner for a lot of folks, certainly city staff as well. I know, again, we've had 2 meetings of the Regional Housing Task Force, both in June and late June and late August. And whereas that is more of a invitation opportunity, I know there have been enough elected officials who have attended, so it's been noticed as more of a public meeting, but certainly not an open forum and a, kind of public discussion item at that point in that venue. That being the case, I know city staff have been talking with Acting President Worthman with City Council to see if there's an opportunity to do something similar there. So that might be the more immediate and more appropriate venue for that. But it does speak to the larger question of, to what degree is there kind of public discussion and public input on not only this item, but other items before the Planning Commission. So this is obviously the one that's a little bit more front and center and more of immediate interest. But it does speak to the bigger question, just in terms of protocol, is there an opportunity to have additional discussion on these larger kind of community-wide regional issues as well? So that's certainly something, as Councilmember Gregert mentioned, we were discussing about it last week. And I know staff is talking with other members of the council, including Acting President Worthman, to see if that's the more immediate venue at this point. But something we'll keep in mind, absolutely, and look into.
Thank you.
Great.
I do want to mention as well that in terms of other items for future agenda items, believe it or not, this is our last meeting in September. Therefore, we're 3/4 of the way through with the year already. So we just have a few more months left in 2018. But wanted to plant the seed. Department directors at City Hall got together last week and already started talking about, again, next year's budget is already in the works, but also next year's work plans. So just keep that in mind. That comes forward in January to discuss the work plan for the Planning Commission for the subsequent year. But just want to plant the seed. Keep those in mind if you have any topics, issues, items. Perhaps this is one that may even come up before 2019, but public input opportunities, for folks on affordable housing and other topics. That might be something to consider. But take a look at comprehensive plan. That's usually what starts to frame and craft some of that work plan, as well as the current work plan. So just watch for that. We'll be sending out some existing version for the 2018 if you've not seen it, or it's been a while since you've seen it. References to the comprehensive plan, and then also maybe even some draft work plan for next year. So just want to stay ahead of that. A lot going on for us to think about. So I did want to mention too, I believe Mr. Schatz may have already left, but he was hiding in the corner, being in support of 2 of the projects here this evening, essentially on behalf of the Gateway Industrial Park. And just wanted to acknowledge, at least publicly, that this was his last Plan Commission meeting, at least as a city employee. So I say that hoping he would come back and visit us at some point in the future, but he is retiring here at the end of the month, and wish him all the best, and glad that he could be here for one more Plan Commission meeting. And there he goes, walking out the door. So,
In the past, we've recognized folks, their efforts by the city. I would assume the city council would do something, or would it be more appropriate for us to give them a little?
That's a good,
Thanks.
good point. I know the redevelopment authority has their next monthly meeting is this Wednesday morning in this location as well, 7:30 in the morning, and he's already well aware that we'll be acknowledging his efforts there. So there'll be certainly some public acknowledgement of his extended service here to the city of Eau Claire this Wednesday morning. But did want to acknowledge that he was present and again wish him all the best as well.
All right. Great. Any other future agenda items? Okay, additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, I guess that's a wrap. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.